Another day, another transfer link for Norwich City, this time linked with Danish striker Kasper Høgh. Now, Kasper Høgh, pronunciation, that's what we're going for. I'm going to stick with it until told otherwise. I don't think it's particularly offensive to say it like that. An interesting one for Norwich City. I wish I hadn't looked at Twitter before doing a little bit of research, although without going onto it, I wouldn't have seen the link in the first place. But this one seems to have caused a decent stir in the fan base. Now, as we always do, I will disclaim that that does not represent the Norwich City fan base as a whole, but it's where I live. So, yeah, it seems to have, I don't know, sort of rustled a few feathers, which is not great, but my job here is to sort of give you what I've found from my own research and maybe a few thoughts and perhaps a few thoughts on the larger implications at play as to what this could mean for Norwich City and certain individuals who we will talk about very shortly. To keep it short and sweet, what do we know? 25 years old, Danish striker, probably closer to Makama's physicality than he is to Fiskaren. Which maybe is kind of the first point to touch on in terms of the profile of striker that Philippe Clement likes. He's bounced around across his career between sort of Denmark and Norway, currently playing in Norway for Bodo Glimt, a team that I'm sure we're all very aware of, and not just through, when would it have been, sort of late 2021 when Kjetil Knutsen was linked to Norwich City. They got to the semi-finals of the Europa League last year, losing to Tottenham, who obviously went on to win the competition. Høgh playing in those games, starting for Bodo Glimt against Tottenham in those semi-finals. This is a player who's played in Europe, as I've said, and actually being Norwich City, sitting where we are in the Championship, I don't think we should be immediately turning our noses up at someone who might be interested in coming and being part of the fight that we're in. Scored 7 goals in 14 in the Europa League last year. As I said, losing in the semi-final to Tottenham, who went on to win the whole thing. Scored a goal this season in the Champions League in 6 appearances. No mean feat at all for when you look at the Champions League as a competition and you look at Bodo Glimt as a team. They probably aren't a team you expect to really compete because of the resources of the other teams in the Champions League. So a goal in the Champions League is not something to turn your nose up at all. Now, when it comes to what we know about him and how to, sort of almost gauge an opinion before he potentially signs for Norwich City, I've read some scout reports. There is kind of one scout report that seems to be doing the rounds really at the moment, which I'll link in the description, which is interesting because, and I'm not going to go into massive detail about it because it's there to be read, and this is from someone who I'm not sure is qualified, but I'm not qualified, so I'm not really going to, use that as a stick to beat that report with. But it seems as if that report is almost a bit of a downer on him. There are a few positives in there, but I find it strange because the clip's used and it seems as if this report is solely based off the Champions League. It seems as if he is a fairly decent player. I know there is kind of this theory that he is the beneficiary of playing for Bodo Glimt in a division where they're expected to dominate, and actually if you stuck anyone up front they'd score you a certain amount of goals. I don't really like that. I get it, I understand it, but I don't particularly like it because if you're scoring goals at the rate to which he is, you've got to have something about you. And that report, go and read it for yourself. It kind of suggests this idea that he doesn't like to be too physical and doesn't have almost those natural goal scoring instincts, yet defensively is okay. I find that report a bit of a mess, so make of that what you will. In terms of statistics that I found, it seems as if the percentiles that he sits in defensively are good and positive, whereas offensively he's a bit lower down the pecking order. But profile-wise, what I've gauged is it seems as if he's slightly better rounded and actually could suit the Championship. I think the account Bethnal YNG on X, great account, really insightful, suggests maybe not. But by looking at it, And actually, by thinking about Philippe Clement, and one key detail here is actually that Philippe Clement has apparently almost given the green light for this to happen, or is almost suggesting it, which makes me instantly feel better. It seems as if he suits the way he wants to play a little bit more than perhaps what Norwich have at the moment with Fiskaren. He's a bit bigger, he's a bit more robust. He's defensively clearly able to impact the game more than someone like Fiskaren will be, which for Norwich City and where they are now, they need everyone chipping in at both ends of the pitch. So it could suit Norwich for the battle that they are in. But 40 goals in 81 games for Bodo Glimt is really not something we should be sort of glossing over. That is a fantastic goal-scoring record for a good team. And if you're scoring lots of goals for a good team, then you're bound to be recognised. At the age of 25 as well, is very much like Ali Ahmed in it's an age where you probably have enough experience playing senior football, but still hopefully your better years are ahead. So when we make this argument that Norwich need players who are ready here and now, age won't be a factor. It'll be more climate and can they adjust to the physicality of the Championship, but not just the Championship, actually the position that Norwich find themselves in, where it's not like he's going to be slotting perfectly into a system that can carve out loads of chances, but actually he's going to have to take the chances that almost come his way, like Jovan Makama is doing superbly. This signing, in terms of the implications and what I think it could mean, I've got a few theories. The first one, I think, is the simplest one, is it's a smokescreen for something else. What else that is, potentially another player. I don't know. That always lingers in the back of my mind because of how, especially, I don't know about recently, maybe just in general, how Norwich City operate. This could potentially be a smokescreen. So we'll see how that develops. Again, wild theory, based off nothing. But on the off chance it's right, then I can pretend that I'm a genius. The other thing is it's a replacement for Norwich City departing with Josh Sargent. Now, I don't think it's as simple as, all right, Sargent goes, he comes in, like for like replacement. I think it's more of a shift towards the way Clement wants to play. And Norwich City, the reported fee is sort of 6 to 7 million euros, and we're almost sort of refusing to believe that Norwich would spend that much on a player because it's not something they historically do very often. But actually what we've been told by ownership, by Ben Napper, even Philippe Clement to a degree, is that Norwich will spend money, and that this fee probably shouldn't be perceived as it previously was, because that money is there and it is available and it's not going to bankrupt the club. So it's not sort of one to look at as, well, we're paying that amount for him, so he should be revolutionary to Norwich City's front line. That's kind of how I view that. Where we sit on the Josh Sargent saga, nothing's really changed for me. I don't think Norwich City should sell just through principle. It'll be a damn shame to lose him. I'm not for the revisionism, the instant revisionism of that Sargent isn't as good as what perhaps someone like me thinks he is, which I stand by thinking he is. And I think potentially if I know Clement recently has said things are unchanged, but I'd love to think that we could get a little bit more out of him before he inevitably departs in the summer. That's if he doesn't go in January. But the other implication is Matthias Fiskaren and where he fits into this, because when he was signed, you looked at this sort of prolific, maybe more like a Pookie than a Sargent type striker who's instinctive and needs people around him. It just hasn't seemingly worked. And it's no longer sort of a niche theory. It seems to be the popular theory that not Paul Clement, Philippe Clement doesn't quite fancy him. And the point I made earlier of it being noted that Philippe Clement has almost been involved in this does make me feel better, because I still don't fully trust our recruitment team based off of the last sort of 2 or 3 years. But equally, I don't fully distrust it, but knowing that the guy who's come in and has almost given us a lot of certainty approves of this, potentially, would be nice. The other person that I've sort of made a video on, Andy Irving, it isn't happening. He's gone to Sparta Prague. Fair enough. I only ever make these videos if I feel like it's a credible transfer. And I mean, straight away, this was tweeted by someone from the Telegraph, and also all of the Norwich City media outlets pounced on it and got the verification that they require from whatever sources they speak to. All in all, I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world. It feels bizarre to say that about a potential sort of €6-7 million striker coming to Norwich City, having played in the Champions League and the Europa League last season, scoring a goal every other game. I've watched the compilation. I'm not going to go on a rant again about compilations and what they mean. He seems like an energetic striker. He seems like someone who can link the play well, which is what Norwich need, because like with Makama and sort of where we're seeing him improve, him getting involved in the link-up play and using his body and using his physicality is the way Clement is going to go. This isn't going to be a Daniel Farke era of just supplying endless amounts of chances to Timu Pukki up front. Those days are well behind us. Ironically, I think the second goal against Wrexham was the most Farke goal we've seen. But it seems as if Clement is a bit more all in this together, if you know what I mean. I'm not sure I know what I mean there, but yeah, this potential signing really isn't a bad one. Prolific goal scorer, great age, good build, good physicality to his play from what I can see. And then there is sort of that looming feeling across social media and from scout reports that maybe he isn't what he's hyped up to be. I'm not in the business of sort of ruling out players before they've signed, because that, one, is dull, but two, I think would suck the life out of me and almost make being a football fan just pointless. But we are where we are, and any signing is always potentially exciting. So we'll see where it goes and if it even happens, and if my weird little theory that it's a smokescreen comes true, which it probably won't. But yeah, your thoughts in the comments down below, please. As always, let me know. Are you excited from potentially what I've said and what you've read, or are you on the side that Twitter is on of looking at this and this and being a little bit doom and gloom about it? I'm always keen to know. You can thumbs the video up if you fancy. Subscribe to... I don't think there's any other transfer links floating around. Norwich play West Brom tonight, so I'm hoping that tonight's match reaction is going to be a positive one. And then a podcast during the week with Adam can be us ranting and raving about how Norwich have signed someone for €7 million and beaten West Brom 3-0. How magic would that be? Take care. See you soon.